Hey Soul Tribe, I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm excited today, almost the spring equinox, to talk to you a little bit about rhythms and how tuning into the natural rhythms of life can actually transform, up level, upgrade your life. A lot of people ask me how it is that I handle everything, like the mothering. For those of you that don't know, I have about a dozen lovers in conscious, non-monogamy. And as a lead facilitator of the uh, International School of Temple Arts, I get to travel around the world and teach these transformative events, the spiritual, sexual, shamanic experience. And a lot of these deep transformative events happen in these containers that honor like a certain rhythm, but then we can break out of the container from the extraordinary into the ordinary world. And the deeper question is like, how do I keep the extraordinary moving in my life? And I think the answer is rhythm. And it's a deep communing with the rhythms of life. And so I want to share, some of the practices that I do rhythmically, one of which obviously is every night everyone falls into a deep, dreamless sleep. We also go through, various like portals and layers of REM sleep, which are times where our soul can commune and move in the etheric realms, and the mind, the all-powerful mind, gets to synthesize what it's learned through, whether it's the day or what it's working on, or problem solve or troubleshoot. So there's like these different states that the brain goes through, and those are actually, it's very rhythmic, this pattern that the brain will cycle through, many times very irregular as well. But the idea is at night, the brain goes through these different states and the soul starts to journey, and that we are more available to commune with those things that are transrational, those things that are metaphysical, those things that we don't understand, which is basically the definition of metaphysical. It's like beyond the physical. It's what science can't explain yet. and sometimes never will. There's the unknown, which science is studying, and then there's the unknowable, which humans just aren't capable of the all-knowing. And mystery is something that should be deeply revered, and is oftentimes a confusion about, there's just ignorance and then there's mystery, and those are not the same thing at all. So I want to just say, hail the mystery, and let's inform ourselves when we're misinformed or just don't have all the knowledge. That's not a state to be revered. All right, so what I wanted to talk about today was how one of my most powerful practices is before dream time, going into like an incubation of prayer and dream state and the communion. And that happens on a daily basis. Like right now, the lighting of this video is a little funky because the sun is setting. And one of my rhythms is to go for a beach walk when I can, to go watch the sunset. I also have the morning sun salutations. So I wake up and greet the sun. And for different people, whether you do yoga or not, it's like, what is your morning practice? How do you set the tone for your day? And so, I personally do running and yoga and meditation and prayer and journaling. But it's really important that you find the practice that works for your soul, where you are, what calls to you, what juices you, because basically it's about nurturing yourself at the beginning of the day before you turn your attention to the outside world. How do you cultivate like the best version of yourself? So that's my morning practice, which I tend to do with my beloved. My husband and I have been doing our practice together for many, many years, when he's not surfing or I'm not traveling. So, but the idea is, hey, this is a big rock. This is something that's essential to my being, like I said, in my best version. And a lot of people, will say, oh, I don't have time for meditation. I don't have time for morning practice or workout. And it's like, where are you putting your time and energy when you really look at it? And often it's not on the things that matter most to the depth structures of who you are. And when you do the morning practice, you get alignment with, this is who I am, this is what matters. And then you start to prioritize through the day. Like you're more efficient actually through the day, and you ironically save time on the small shit that you end up like doing out of habit if you don't really center yourself on what matters. So I'm a huge advocate of morning practice, because it's especially a time to do the tools and the inner work that we do in the extraordinary containers of ISTA. And that's how we help integrate it into the day. And then through the day, it's nice to have systems of how you run your, like time management can sound so mundane, so ordinary, and yet really is extraordinary to manage your time well, because it's your life force energy. Like knowing, oh, I'm going to, do the things that matter most, and I'm going to prioritize those and structure those. That comes from a care for life. And I'm emphasizing this because of all the people that, ask me, like, how is it that you've written, 7 books and you're still writing a novel while you're traveling? It's because I actually rock a to-do list. So in addition to being in the flow and the energy, it's also really the balance between meditation where you do nothing and to-do lists where you're like, this is what I'm going to do, and I get to check them off. So I really love the polarity of that, which is, of course, one of the definitions of Tantra is collapsing those polarities, not just the feminine and the masculine, but like structure and flow and any seemingly contradictory continuum that we're actually vibrating at a higher level than the perceived polarities. So I want to say that in addition to the daily practices, there's also a monthly cycle. So yes, this happens to be the start of a new season, and springtime's a wonderful time to look at the next 3 months. But then within the month, there's the full moon and the new moon, the full moon and the new moon. There's always this lunation cycle that can help us birth. Like full moon is like a full amplifier of whatever it is we're creating. And then the dark moon, is a time to plant seeds, to go within, to see, what needs to be pruned. And those 2 moments, whether you're spiritual, religious or not, those are times that we can just honor that this cosmic body is having this influence on us, and that there is a rhythm to life. It's a great time to reevaluate what your goals are, your priorities are. I personally take the time to send out my deepest prayers, to commune with my beloveds, especially because for me, that's what life's about. It's like not there. It's wonderful having the money. It's wonderful having, all of the things and the travel and, a healthy body. And at the end of the day, the relationships are really what enrich us, what really being able to help others and see ourselves in their reflection and create, community. It's really what, I prioritize. And so, this spring, this is maybe a side note, but it's a really special community moment for me because 1 year ago, so, a full cycle of all the seasons, I launched the Love Leadership. That was my first pilot coven of this, kind of form, which is for healers and teachers and dakinis and practitioners and sacred sex workers, and for all of us to come together and to support each other's work in the world. And this is like the graduation. So I'm just really in this wonderful place of celebrating that. We completed our first full cycle. And part of that work was doing these full moon and new moon ceremonies, which is around the same time I started sending out these videos. So I want to acknowledge that, I'm transparently sharing, how important these rhythms have been for me in my life. And I hope that hearing from me on a, regular basis, like pulsing at you in the new and full moons, is a good reminder just to check in and to feel your own examination of like, what am I manifesting? Where am I putting my energy towards? What am I here for? Which is a really big, important question in these times. This is an imminent, like urgent time in history. And what are we doing? Yeah, so I say it with a smile so that I don't cry. There's a lot of shifting and changing happening. And do we want to be part of the positive change? Or if we don't do anything, if we don't like use our life force to apply it towards what matters to us, then we're, kind of part of the status quo, which is really falling apart. So I'm really happy to, feel like I'm surrounded by people who are part of a new culture that's being visioned, that's being vibrated into. And part of that new culture is having new rituals, like new language, new practices. And so I'm, sharing some of my practices and my rituals with you now. But of course, one of our deep values is like touch and presence. And I would love, as the world is opening up, to spend a little more time, to get to hug you, to get to connect with more of my soul tribe. So I will, I'll keep inviting you. I'll send my invitations to you on the new moon, on the full moon, and whether or not you can come and join me in my travels, in my shamanic teachings, I really hope that it inspires you to deepen your rhythmic practices. Because there is, this is springtime. So it's a good time for deep self-assessment and spring cleaning. And I would love for you to look at what in my life is incongruent. Like, what are the things in my life that are like at odds with each other? Like, where am I not showing up in alignment? And how can I weed out those things that don't serve me? And be specific. What is it that you currently do that's not adding value to your life? Like really take a self-assessment. Springtime's a great time to be like, okay, I'm going to take on an austerity. I'm going to stop this or start this. And the way that we really transform deep lasting transformation is in the small daily habits. It's not in these grand breakthrough. I mean, a few times in life you might have an awakening, which is wonderful. Those awakenings, though, will fade if you don't have the habits in place to like keep you working towards your full potential. So it's with a full heart that I send you the greatest blessings this spring, and I look forward to our next connection. Mwah.